Thanks again for coming. Our first introductions, we'll just go down the line. Obviously, they probably know you, Blake. But we'll start with Blake and go down.
Blake Robbins, writer, director, actor.
Marci
Producer,
Liroff.
craft service.
Marci Liroff, producer, casting director.
Anastasia Baranova, actor.
So we always like to start these Q&As because with acknowledging anybody in the audience who worked on the film, because it takes an army. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, there was so much amazing talent on the film. I don't know exactly who all's here. I know our cinematographer, Lynn Moncrief. I've seen him earlier. Are you going to stand up, Lynn, or no? Yeah, there he is. If you knew how little he had to work with, if you knew, which you'll find out. We have some producers as well. Warren in the background. Kevin Slee, I think, made it. Kevin Slee. Anyone else want to tell me they came?
Lily Hayden is there.
Lily Hayden?
Our composer.
Our brilliant composer. Yeah. All right, anyone else?
Yes. Don't be shy. It's okay.
Well, they were incredibly talented, and they went above and beyond, and I'm a little verklempt about them.
I've never seen him speechless before,
Oh.
ever.
We're going to jump right in. So I always like to start these with the foundation of a film is the story and the script. So can you tell first maybe where the story came from, how that kind of percolated, and then how it kind of moved into script form?
Yeah, I know we only have about 30 minutes, so I'll try to be a little Reader's Digest about it. Essentially, the script for me was three phases. I was in New York during 9/11, and I was left with the idea of an ordinary day sideswiped by tragedy, just that conceptually. I had my closest friend in college passed away a few years out after college from a brain tumor at 27, and so grief has kind of been a central issue of mine. I think there was a third thing. Maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, oh my God, I can't even believe. I can't believe I. No, well, my dad did pass away the April before we shot it, but in terms of storytelling, when I was a junior in college, my aunt was hit by a drunk driver. She survived the accident, but it forever changed her experience of life. And so I was a junior in college, and it happened just prior to Christmas. And when we went back to visit her in the hospital, she was in ICU with a drunk driver. And it's more common than you would think. If there are hospital facilities for injuries, doesn't matter how you got them, you're both there. So that was, a critical part of the storytelling. And in terms of talking to actors and hopefully inspiring you to go make your own movies and go do your own things, I came to this very late in life, not the acting, well, even the acting so much, but the filmmaking. And the actor who plays my best friend in the movie, Matthew Del Negro, who was going to try and be here but is working today, good for him, just inspired me when I was telling him some of these ideas. He was, part of my central core group of, and he said, just write one scene. And literally a few days later, I couldn't sleep one night, and I wrote essentially 70 pages on yellow legal pad, just couldn't sleep and stayed up all night and wrote what I think probably ended up to be about 70% of the film. That was in 2004. Yeah, so write what you know, write what you're passionate about, write what stays with you.
So 2004 is kind of when the script started. How long before you started going, okay, I'm actually going to make this? This is something like when there's like pre-production start coming in and that discussion and that kind of motivation.
Yeah, with any movie, there's about 7 different false starts at least, minimally, of I think I'm going to make it in 2007 with these people, and then they decide they don't want to spend their money that way, and in this film, likewise. I know that Mark Stolaroff's in the audience. He runs something called No Budget Film School. I highly recommend it. To be completely honest about my story, a lot of these ideas were my own, And then by happenstance, I heard about the course. I was literally a day or two out of doing a play, and they were having the course the next week. And so I signed up, went and took his course, and it was a perfect marriage of the things I was already thinking about and the things he was teaching about. I don't want to misrepresent the class, but essentially, if you frame it correctly in your head, anything that you potentially is an obstacle or an impediment or something in the way, if you frame it correctly, you can create a better version of a film, or at least your version of a film. And that's what I did. If you knew how little we had, I don't think some of my producers want me to get into conversations about practical realities just because we're trying to sell a film and all of those types of things. But I shot it in 12 days, 6 days on, 1 day off, 6 more days. The winter before, I literally made a declaration and called 3 people and said, I'm going to make this movie next winter if I have to shoot it on my iPhone, which I didn't own an iPhone at the time, so that's how dedicated I was.
But I have to interrupt you.
Please.
I have an iPhone now, which I'll show you.
Are you going to tell the story?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, wow.
I have an iPhone now, and this is what I was paid to cast this film.
I bought her that iPhone. We almost made the movie on it.
So, yeah, recurring theme here.
Yeah.
So then,
Did I answer that question?
you did. You
All
did.
right.
I think the idea of motivation and the fact that you're going to do it no matter what, I think is huge.
Well, one of the things in Mark's class, he had the filmmakers who made the movie Bellflower came and talked to us, a film that had been at Sundance the year before, and very much do-it-yourself, Kickstarter money, family money. And the first thing out of the gentleman's mouth who did it is the quickest, easiest way to make a movie is pick a first day of production. I was like, all right, December 12th. Yeah. It didn't end up being December 12th, but, because then I wanted Lynn Moncrief to shoot it, and he was available this day, and then, it changes, but I think we started shooting January 7th, so if you pick a first day of production, something could happen.
It's all about setting the intention, and you set the intention. And I remember when this is how I came on board, you wrote on Facebook,
Yeah.
I'm so excited, I'm finally making my film, directing the film that I wrote, The Sublime and Beautiful. And I thought, wow, that's a beautiful title. So I wrote to Blake, whom I knew already. I had produced a web series of classes, online classes for actors, and he came and spoke. And we just knew each other peripherally through friends. And so I sent him an email back saying, congratulations, and if there's anything you need, I'm here for you. Let me help you. Not knowing anything about it, just, if you need anything, I thought he would call me and just pick my brain about an actor.
Cut to
Yes, exactly.
Marci, Liroff, producer.
Yeah. So cut to, he sends me the script. Now, I've been casting movies and produced a few movies, but I've been doing this for years. And everybody always sends me their scripts. Can you please help me get my movie off the ground, get it cast, help me get it financed? And
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
First, you asked me a little bit of the logistics, and I said, it's a passion project, Marci. And you said, oh, that scares me. And I wrote back, this should terrify you. But here's the script.
Right, and I always get these scripts, and they're usually not very good. And the writer, producer, and he's the star producer, director, writer. They're not very good, and they don't have their ducks in a row. They don't have it ready. It's not clear. And I read the script and fell in love. Yes, I was passionate about it, and I joined on because I felt like I had to be part of it, not just because of the drunk driving aspect, and I've unfortunately lost several friends to drunk drivers, but it felt like it was a story that had to be told, and the way that he wanted to tell it was really beautiful to me. And I knew I wasn't going to make any money, and it wasn't about that. And he had his ducks in a row. Like I said, he had a lot of parts cast. A lot of his friends were already joined on. He knew who he wanted to have as his DP. He had a location. It was very well thought out. And then we set about putting the Kickstarter campaign together.
Yeah. And
Did we
Marci,
skip
and-
ahead?
No,
and
go ahead.
Marci, and Marci brought me Anastasia. I didn't know Anastasia before the film. She brought in some actresses for that role, and speaking of which, that's how Anastasia came to the film.
Can I tell that little story and you can chime in? Anastasia worked for my casting office as an intern. You actors out there, it's the greatest way to learn is to be an intern at a casting office. And she worked for us off and on for a couple of years. And when this part, and I knew she was an actress and I'd seen her stuff. She also auditioned for us on some of the things that we were doing. And when this part came up, I thought of a few people and I brought in probably 4 or 5 women. That was it. And
Maybe 6.
okay. Maybe 6.
But
Yes.
just Anastasia. They were all
And
great.
what was your experience like in the audition?
For me, I had, what's super, super trippy, and like, not to get too hippie with everything, but I had maybe about 2 weeks prior to the audition, I was with my mom and we were in Spain visiting some family, and I was reading a book and I was just really in it, and I saw it and I was like, I want to work, I want to be part of a team, I want to give of myself, I saw it and just kind of threw it out there, and I came back. I think I was sick, like I was coming up with a whole bunch of excuses. And Marci said, it was like, just come in and read, because I read it and I was like, oh, I can't. Oh, it's too much. Oh, I'm gonna like mess it up. But I went in and they had me sing, which was terrifying, and they had me get vulnerable, which was terrifying.
Yeah, and it didn't say, to be fair to Anastasia, the idea of the character singing and wanting to leave the community was kind of not in the draft of the script. It was just something I pitched. I said to Marci, I said, oh, and by the way, the girls that are coming in, if any of them can sing a little a cappella, just find out if they're okay with it. And most of them tried, but that scene hadn't been written. I was just kind of, again, you don't have to follow the rules. I mean, you don't. You can make your own rules. I just kind of had that in the back of my mind. I didn't know which version of the film, and it turned out that Anastasia had a good voice, and that added an element for, because I had to get a lot from each person in a little bit of sliver of time that they were going to be, we had to know that they were coming from someplace, going someplace, and believe where they'd been. And so that was just an idea. So she jumped in and did it. And
Another
it became
unique
part of the
thing
movie.
that you did that you were able to jump into as an actor is, like I said, I've cast so many films, and especially with a writer-director, they are very attached to their words. They want to hear their words read in the audition. And they don't want you to improvise too much, especially in television. I've noticed that lately. But we go into casting sessions with Blake on a few roles, and he says to all the actors, and I don't really care about the words. I know they're my words, but just do what you feel. And pretty much every actor kind of went, it's scary, right? You never get told that. And how often do you actually get the opportunity to do that? And so a lot of people kind of froze with all that freedom. They didn't know what to do, which makes me think you really don't know your character. You're not really, really prepared. You're prepared to recite the lines. But if you really know it, you should be able to just slip into their skin and have a conversation with Blake, which is what he was trying to do with the actors. And some of them really went for him. Some of them really didn't know what to do. And you took that was like freedom to you.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And I feel like that's what happened throughout the film in general. Like every time we get to a scene, Blake would be like, okay, here's what this is. And then what can we cut? How can we simplify? How can we just get to the heart of it? Which I feel happens a lot throughout the film. And the main thing that I took away a lot, but this really changed me. On day one, you were like, just don't get too precious with it. And I swear to God, that sentence will just always forever stay with me. Like, just don't get too precious with it. Because the tendency is to be like, so dramatic and like each moment. And then it just becomes too much. And this, you're just kind of like, that's just how it is.
And less talking,
So much less talking.
I felt the
We're going to let you talk at a certain point.
No problem. I'm enjoying it. I'm just hanging out. The set, the location felt like a character unto itself. Can you talk a little about Kansas? Why Kansas?
Yeah.
Why there? Everything like that.
Yeah, sure. My mother is from Southeast Kansas, Independence, Kansas. Oh, by the way, Dan Ryan, who gave us the wonderful end title credit song, I've spotted in the audience as well, and it's a beautiful song. Yeah. Thank you for giving us your brilliance, Dan. So I went to college in Kansas, and I actually went to Wichita State University, and when I originally conceived of the script, I used Wichita. as a city because I just knew it. Along the way, I started doing films with a filmmaker from Lawrence, Kansas, a gentleman named Kevin Wilmot, who's a very talented filmmaker. And so I spent a significant amount of time in Lawrence and decided Lawrence was better for my movie than Wichita as a character, and that was kind of important to me. Remembering to say something about it as a filmmaker. And because I only had a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time, Lawrence afforded me the opportunity to do everything within a 2-mile radius. Everything you see there, we were never more than a mile or two away from that location. So literally, on our busiest day, we had 3 company moves, 4 locations, and literally shot 12 pages of material. And then one day we just did all the restaurant stuff, and it was all within, a 5-block radius. So we would just jump from one, and so I kept making the movie as an opportunity. And if, and people were looking at me like I was crazy, we didn't shut down a single location. We had a PA stationed outside the door, and if people walked in and out, they were just asked to sort of not stare down the camera and go about their business. Some, because you're in the Midwest, just kindly waited and said, "Oh, I'll wait," and just hung outside in January. I never paid $1 for any locations. Some of them fed us. Some of us fed us at a discount. Some of them fed us for free. This was all by design on my part. I mean, where can I go? And so also I would encourage you not to think of a movie as dollars and cents, although it can be that. Really, you need a camera, a great story, people who will be in front of the camera, and people who will be behind the camera. Those 4 things you can get at an extraordinarily low price in today's technology. I could not have made this film, 3 or 4 years ago. You can make a movie. I did, and I'm not that smart, honestly.
But he's underselling a little bit, because another thing we had
Yeah.
was this guy who is incredibly charming in all the right ways. Not in a slick way. You're going to get embarrassed. But
That's my wife.
Right?
Applauding.
You know what I'm talking about, right? People, like a moth to a flame, he brought people to him due to his integrity and his, the fairy dust that he would kind of sprinkle on everything. And anyone that's worked with him on this film knows what I'm talking about. We were all here for the same reason, because we wanted to be here. But you couldn't get all those things together, all those 4 things you were talking about, without the glue and whatever that magic thing that you have. You don't get locations for free just because people are nice.
I remember we went into the sheriff's station.
You're great with that. I mean, you got...
Change the subject.
It's hard. Well, but it's hard though. It's really like you can't come up to somebody and just be really present and really genuine and speak to who they are and to things that matter and have them not be affected. Like literally everybody. Marci sent me a script. I was like, I'll cater the film. Like, can I just stand there with water bottles? Can I just be in the vicinity? And I feel like that was everybody's response. I was like, oh my God, anything I can do to make it happen.
Thank you.
The police department, you were going to say.
Yeah, this guy was a character. I'm in there, and I had gotten up to this point. This was the last location we needed, really, a central location, because, I could swap something for something else. It didn't matter, as long as I. But I needed a sheriff station. I felt like it, led some truth to the film, and so I'm in the sheriff station, and I thought I'm just going to go for it, right? I've gotten everything else. I've got a wing of a hospital given to me. I've gotten everything in there for free. So I walk in, and this guy's a good old boy, and he's got a big dip in. He's looking at me like I've sprouted 3 heads, and I'm telling him everything we need, how long we need to be in there, and I'm also telling him that I need a couple of uniforms, and it would be great to have a police car. And he's looking at me like this, and at the end he goes, I don't know if it's me, but I don't understand a damn thing you're saying. I said, no, it's probably me. And he said, all right. And he literally said, all right. And someone who was with me, the woman from Kansas who was helping me with location, said, well, I don't know if we need the whole uniform. We might just need, and I said, he said, all right, we're leaving. And we left, and I never saw him again, and we got everything. I mean, they sent the car to the location. They sent us they sent us the other uniform officer to kind of come with the car and be a part of it. And, you know, he ended up marrying the woman who played my wife. It's a great story. They fell in love on it, you know. I could see something was going on. I was busy, but I could see something. That really tall police officer showed up with the car that first day, and Laura seemed friendly. Yeah. Is he even working today? But anyway, yeah, no, you just ask.
Nice. So, main reason I asked this is because you live in Los Angeles. You have your family in Los Angeles.
Yep.
The kids in the film were your kids.
Yeah, those were my kids.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Isn't my wife a saint?
Yeah.
That was the hardest part. And I'll tell you, just to make you feel better about them being in the movie, I compartmentalized the film, knowing that they would never have to do anything other than, if you remember about it, have breakfast with me, hang out in the park with me. And so we shot them in the first day or two, and then got them out of there. You know, they just rode around in the car with me. Because Molly and Emma were the age that I didn't, you know, I wasn't going to lie to them. I told them this much about what the film was about, so they knew that the kids died. They knew that it was about that. And I remember my middle daughter said to me, "Why did I make a film about that?" And I was grateful that she brought it up with me, and I said, because it is absolutely the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to me, and for some reason, me as an artist, I've decided to go there. I said, but in truth, it's because it would be the most devastating thing that could ever happen to me. And I said, I don't know if that makes sense or not. And she said, nope. But I didn't want them to, you know, they won't see the movie till they're late teens, or, you know, maybe when they come back and ask. They had a blast. I mean, they were eating donuts. By the second day, they were playing jokes on sound, you know, like, because they knew that they could hear them, and they were all, and they were natural. And I also knew I didn't make them learn anything. Everything you see there was just us going and being us to each other, and they were just, you know, perfect that way. It was the only way I could do it. I couldn't do it with child actors. I couldn't have afforded the tutor. I couldn't have this or that. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't break any rules or anything, but they were out of school, and also, if you agreed to act in this film, you never spent more than, you know, except for a few of us, more than a few hours on the set any day. We were on to the third scene of the day by, you know, before you had a chance to take a water break. We were just moving that fast. So that, you know, they weren't there that much. You know, my wife Karen was there with them, taking care of them, and they know what the movie's about a little bit, and that's it. But they were my kids.
One of my favorite scenes was the scene with your son and the grapes, and just how genuine the woman, the actress, was.
Yeah.
So connected to you, but so just knowing that you just had to kind of be with him and just like kind of like be in the moment with him while still doing the scene.
Yeah, and what's left there is a lot more interesting than the 40 minutes that wasn't put in there. I mean, he was definitely a challenge because he was at that age. He wanted his real mommy and this and that. But again, creativity. Again, just peeking behind the curtain a little bit as a filmmaker. We didn't kind of get the connection I wanted between her and the kids at the breakfast scene. You know, it wasn't quite, you know, and so I was watching daily. So I was shooting 12 hours, and I was watching 2 hours of footage every night before we came. And so that scene didn't have that in it, but I intuitively thought, Laura, the only thing we need in the scene between you and I is the white lie that I'm not where I said I was going to be. That's important for the story. And you and Cooper we have to see a real connection. And she came up with that, you know, because she's a mom or whatever. She started rolling him the grapes, and he started playing with them. And luckily, because we sat him in front of a peanut butter and sandwich, you know, he stayed for long enough, and he enjoyed that moment. And we get something that I think is critical for the film to work, you know, but we're doing it on the fly. But that's the other beauty of paying of being responsible for everything, is there's no one to tell you, dude, what are you doing? You're changing the whole day. You were now going to shoot. I did whatever I wanted. I loved it. I mean, I did. I really had a great time. I did whatever I wanted, and so we adjusted to it. Yeah, my kids are sort of amazing. Yeah, they weren't acting. Yeah.
What were some of the pros and cons and difficulties, and you can even take this broader, of being here in LA, but then having to shoot in Kansas, of just kind of like producing and managing, and then also bigger picture of that is just some pros and cons. First time being a producer, you're like, this was super hard, or this was easier than I thought, or.
It was a challenge. We were kind of a split group. We were started, I didn't have any money to really be there for pre-production, so I leaned on, and is James Cox back there as well? Another one of our producers, and this ties in nicely. I sent him the script, and then we had a conversation. I kind of explained how Lawrence was laid out, and he literally scheduled our shoot with never having been in Lawrence, Kansas. I don't recommend this for a film, that you schedule a shoot with the producer who's never been to where the locations are. But he took a pass at it with a little bit of guidance from me, and then I looked at it and I said, yeah, this, and we talked about it. I would say about 95% of that schedule held up. Really did, and James did that from LA before we got there. We were only really in Lawrence for about 2 weeks, and it was basically me living at Laura's house, and that was pre-production. I'm living there. I had an open call the first weekend, and probably 200 actors showed up. As far away as Iowa, to come, because there's just not that many feature films, and they put the word out, and one of those actresses who auditioned for the film, and here's something that sucks. Because I knew how fast we were going to be shooting, there were great people who showed up to be a part of the movie that I couldn't use because if I needed them in a half an hour, they weren't that close. So I had to look them in the eye and say, I could have easily have used you, except I'm shooting this film so fast that if I cast you and need you tomorrow instead of on Thursday, I can't trust that. I don't have the money to trust that. I can't put you here. So there were some realities there, but we got great people. And like the gentleman who visits with me in the waiting room, I send that scene to Marci, and it was an improv. It was an improv that we did. I knew Mike from, he was part of the theater department and film department at KU. He was born like that. I don't know exactly what his condition is, but I think he had the umbilical cord suffocated him at birth, and then survived it. And his brain is perfectly functioning. It's a physical disability, not a mental disability. So, and I knew him from that community, and they had always used him as an extra. And I said, Mike, can you come to this open call for me? Now, there are a lot of other people in that similar situation who didn't end up in the final cut or get cast. But he came in, and I didn't really have a scene for him. And I said, I literally in the audition with a lot of people waiting, I said, give me 30 seconds. I went, we're in a waiting room together. We're in a waiting room. I'm going to sit next to you. You sit next to me. We filmed it. I sent that to Marci, and she was like, you got it. You got to do it.
You have to use this.
Yeah, or at least
have
try,
to use it,
try
yeah.
for it. And it stayed in the film. Again, breaking all the rules. It was always a film of opportunity. I never imagined the house that the family would live in would be that house. I had it very different in my head. But Laura called her real estate guy. He knew what was available. We needed it to be lived in. We needed it to have a feeling of kids. They had a couple of kids. And that was actually the house from the Day After movie that they filmed in Lawrence, Kansas. If you remember that movie when they all hide in the basement and the Russians, and it was the, I'm old enough to remember that it was all the scariest thing. Next Friday, we're going to watch what happens when Russia nukes us. They're going to nuke Lawrence, Kansas for some reason. Strategically, but it was a gift. And here's a funny story. You said funny anecdotes earlier, potentially in our pre-interview we had backstage while you watched the movie. I didn't know how to start the movie. I had written something differently. I had this slicker opening, and when I saw that location, that long road, I said, get us a paper boy for the last day of shooting, because I knew we were going to be at the house that last day. I said, I'm going to put him all the way down there, and I'm going to have him drive all the way up. And it was our location manager's son. She got the paper and the thing, and we did it. And he did it one time from halfway, and I was kind of like, but he was so exhausted. When he got up, I was like, I can't make him do it again. If I was Scorsese, I'd send that kid to I don't know if it would have made it in, but I wanted him to drive from all the way. And to me, that was just a way of saying, okay, we live in a world where you still get a newspaper. This is a place where you still get a newspaper. This is a place where, you know, the kid still brings it to you. And I thought that just brought you to the house. And so I just found that from finding the location and seeing that driveway and being like, this is how we'll get to the house.
You touched on this a little bit. I want to end on this note, and maybe Marci can chime in on this. The idea of this is your first production as a producer, first film. Now that it's in the can and you're at this phase of it, looking back, what's some recommendations for people who want to be there to produce their first feature? What are some things you're like, hold on to this, or things casting directors need from their producers to go, okay,
it starts with a script. It always starts with a script. And if you have a good script, you can go anywhere. And it's like you can't make it into something that it's not. It has to be on the page. When I read a script as a casting director, I think, can I send this out to people and is it going to excite them? And it's all on, if it's not on the page, it's not going to end up there. You can cast the shit out of it. You can have a slick production, and it's still just, if it's not there on the page, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think we've all seen movies that have had millions and bajillions of dollars, and at the end you watch it and nothing happens, which is not to say anything, like that not all movies have to do things, you know what I mean? But it is really interesting. You think, you're like, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough this. The best things generally happen when you can't just throw money at it and find like a solution. It really makes itself, because this is Blake's idea, it's everybody, but it's really a thing in and of itself. It's like, it's something that wanted to be made, and it found all the right people and all the right police guys that were there at that day, at that time. It was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
so
you have to take the gift of the moment.
Yeah, just really listening to like, okay, how does this want to be, what is the story that is wanting to be told, and really making yourself available to just kind of curate it and bring it into the world.
I had two quick thoughts. The first one is, if anything that I'm proud of as a filmmaker, besides surrounding myself with really incredibly talented people, the next thing I would say that I learned right away, the first day when I was working with Scott Winters, the gentleman who played the police officer, and he wanted to go a direction that I wasn't really when he shared that with me, I was kind of like, that's not it. Wait a second, time out. That's not what I'm thinking. I stopped myself. Something clicked, and I said, hey, Scott's a great actor. Let him do it. Even though we were trying to get out by lunch and this. And when he started, to be 100% honest, it wasn't kind of working, but I let him go, and it's one of my favorite moments it makes. And right in that moment, I learned if you put really brilliant people around you, really bringing it, giving themselves, just let them go for a while. I mean, I can always circle around to what, I had a million thoughts. Everyone knows. I had ideas. It wasn't a lack of leadership. It was really a collaboration. I know what I know. I don't know what they know. And I use that all the way through post-production, everything. Let really talented people show you something better than you ever conceived of.
On that note, one time for Laura Kirk, who plays Kelly, because Laura, just watching her act is like a master class. And Lynn, our DP, like, I'm pretty sure you could pause the movie at any given time and print, because you'd be like, wow, that's a very moving picture. Like, everything is just so incredibly beautiful. So
yeah, we shot that film without grip or electric. Lynn did everything. Yeah. I heard that he had done it on another movie. I saw some of that movie, and so I sought him out through Facebook. I've tracked him down. I sent him the script, and I said, Lynn, you and I got to do this movie. And basically he did it with, some China balls and some, really, that's another thing. I've been an underdog in my career my whole life. I identify with underdogs. I see them and I recognize their ability and talent. And he should be making, Scorsese films, but he made my film, and he will be one day. But I trust that when I see someone I know has talent, I hire them. I get them on board. I bring them on. I let them do their thing.
Let's give them a hand.